Good morning, everyone. I'm Federica Porchera, and today I'm going to briefly present my graduation thesis from translation to transcreation for effective communication. The range of services made available by translation agencies is getting wider and wider, and sometimes potential clients might have a hard time understanding the specific differences between the various services offered to them. These services include transcreation. As linguist Viviana Gaballo says, although transcreation has now become a buzzword in the translation business, it is a not yet regularized neologism that deserves its proper place in translation. However, at the same time, some argue that it is not a service in itself with concrete and substantial differences from translation. Some claim that translation agencies talk about transcreation merely to give the idea of offering a better and more sought-after service than generic translation. Therefore, the goal of my paper was to define what transcreation is and demonstrate that it is for all intents and purposes a different service than translation and that it has its own specific application field. The term transcreation comes from the words translation and creation. In fact, it is a creative process that goes beyond simply translating a text. In transcreation, tone and emotion are prioritized over content. One must distance oneself from the source text and leave room for imagination. The goal is not to faithfully recreate the meaning of the text, but not to lose the emotional effect of the source message and to make its content stimulating for the target audience. Precisely because of its focus on arousing emotions, transcreation is mainly applied in the world of marketing and advertising, in which companies improve their image, retain new customers, and convince them to buy their products and services by means of advertising campaigns. The above-mentioned goals are achieved when advertisements and commercials succeed in arousing positive emotions in their target audience, and in turn, this happens when potential buyers manage to feel close to and identify with the reality depicted in the advertisements and commercials. For this to happen, advertising campaigns often leverage cultural factors to which the target audience can relate. However, it is clear that what works and is effective for a particular target audience will not necessarily have the same power on an audience with a different culture, and this factor must be taken into strong consideration by a company that wants to expand its market abroad. Here is where transcreators, who, as their name implies, must be creators as well as translators, come into play. In order to achieve the sales goal, transcreators are granted vast decision-making power, such as the freedom to rearrange the order of sentences and paragraphs, create new headlines, eliminate parts that they do not deem culturally relevant to the target audience, or even add parts that they consider effective instead. In addition, transcreators must also work on the images, colors, and words that appear in a piece of content, as well as on the sounds and songs that go together with the written or spoken text, and should suggest appropriate changes for these elements as well. One could argue that changes to the text can also be made in translation, and precisely with regard to the cultural references present in a text and their impact on readers. However, one must remember that these are changes driven by fundamentally different reasons. For example, in translation, one can apply the translation technique called cultural adaptation, formalized by linguists Jean-Paul Binet and Jean d'Arbelnet. It is true that this technique is applied to elicit in the readers of the translation the same emotions felt by the readers of the source text. However, this is always done by virtue of fidelity to the proto-text and the author. In contrast, in transcreation, which again applies to marketing and advertising, the emotions aroused through the changes are not the ultimate goal. They are merely the means by which the real goal of an advertising campaign, which is to sell, will be achieved. Finally, to further demonstrate the importance of applying precisely transcreation in the world of marketing, I'll look at an example that has nothing to do with texts to be translated or transcreated may be interesting. The poster for Marvel 2022 movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We are therefore taking into consideration an advertising medium based on visual elements only. For those who do not know, the movie protagonist, played by actor Benedict Cumberbatch, is a wizard. The Italian poster pictures him while performing a spell with a particular gesture of his left hand. The thumb, ring finger, and little finger are joined toward the center of the hand, while the index and middle fingers are straight up. The American poster is a little different. Thumb, middle, and ring fingers are joined, while index and little finger are straight and pointing upward. The result is a gesture that would not be much appreciated in Italy. Fortunately, a good Italian transcreator suggested that the blow-ups of Benedict Cumberbatch making the insulting gesture used in Italy to tell someone that they were cheated on were not exactly great publicity.